Coming up on Arirang News, Typhoon Haishen passes through South Korea, causing power outages and damaging homes and businesses in coastal cities. Now the storm is moving towards North Korea. South Korea reports fewer than 200 new cases of the coronavirus for a fifth day in a row. The trend suggests the stricter social distancing in the Seoul area is working. And a report from the Korea Development Institute suggests that the resurgence of COVID-19 in South Korea may have derailed the recovery in the local economy. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Our top story this afternoon, Typhoon Haishen has left sizable damage in some regions of South Korea. Arirang's Jang Tae-hyun went to Pohang, a city on the east coast of Gyeongsang-Buk-do province, one of the areas most affected by the storm.
Typhoon Haishen has hit the southern part of the country, flooding the streets and even collapsing parts of some buildings. Several places in the city of Pohang have lost electricity, and people have been advised to evacuate. Blackouts have put residents in a state of chaos, and an owner of a convenience store is frustrated because without electricity, it means frozen goods are going to thaw. Many streetlights collapsed and signboards have fallen down. A former ship navigator, who's a restaurant owner in the area, says it was the most severe typhoon ever.
Houses near the seaside have been left devastated. It's worse than being hit by a bomb during a war.
He said that just a few days ago, the military helped him fix the damage caused by Typhoon Maysak, which hit the area last week. But the building sustained even more damage due to the impact of Haishen.
I just don't know where to start. I'm at a loss.
Pohang residents say that something ought to be done to help protect buildings close to the seafront so that nothing like this happens again. Jang Tae-hyun, Arirang News, Pohang.
South Korea reported 119 new coronavirus cases on Monday, marking the fifth straight day there have been fewer than 200. Among the new cases, 108 were transmitted locally, mostly concentrated in the greater Seoul area, while the other 11 were from overseas. This brings the total number of infections nationwide to over 21,000 and the death toll to 336. The health authorities are on high alert as sporadic infections continue to come from high-risk facilities, including a call center in Seoul's Gangdong-gu district and an e-commerce logistics center. South Korea's ruling party is vowing to win in the fight against COVID-19 and prepare for the post-pandemic future. But in doing so, it's urging bipartisanship. In a policy speech Monday, the party's leader, Lee Na-kyun, said the country should prepare as one for a great transformation. He emphasized the need for a safety net to protect the most vulnerable in society, the need to develop new industries, to move forward with the Korean New Deal, and to achieve balanced development. Lee said the most vulnerable people need to be the first to receive the second round of relief funds, ideally before the end of this month. He also asked the opposition party to cooperate and proposed that the two sides resume their regular talks. South Korea's economy seems to have improved last month, but the resurgence of COVID-19 cases in recent weeks could be undoing all that. Many of the positive indicators for August don't yet reflect the stricter social distancing measures now in effect, as our Kim Sung-min reports.
Before the resurgence of COVID-19, the local economy was improving. Data from the Korea Development Institute show that in August, business and consumer sentiment both improved from the month before. The Coincident Composite Index reflecting current economic performance rose by 0.2 of a point, and the index for future business conditions edged up 0.4 of a point. Exports also improved as the economies of Korea's major trading partners like China and the U.S. opened up. Average daily exports fell by 3.8% from a year earlier, an improvement from the drop of 7.1% seen in July. But the resurgence of COVID-19 in South Korea, according to KDI, means these indicators could fall again from September. The biggest hit is likely to be in the service sector, which has suffered the most in the pandemic already. Exports could also contract depending on the situation globally.
We could assume the manufacturing could also take a hit as consumption falls. Also, since manufacturing is directly linked to exports, we can assume that exports could decline again with the resurgence of the virus in other major countries.
In fact, Korea's consumption has already fallen significantly with the latest spike in cases. According to Shinhan Card, credit card spending from August 19th through the 30th, when stricter social distancing came into effect, dropped by 12.1% on year. People also struggled to find work last month. The government's provision of unemployment benefits rose 15.2% compared to the same time last year. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
Employees in South Korea will now be able to use more days off work to take care of their families in times of disaster. In Parliament on Monday, lawmakers passed a bill that, when disaster strikes like the pandemic, doubles the amount of unpaid leave for family care from 10 days to 20. Single parents will be given 5 extra days for a total of 25 days off. If employees are disadvantaged by their employers for using their days, then the employer will be fined up to about $25,000 or face up to 3 years in prison. The amount spent every year by the South Korean government on welfare obligations is expected to rise over the next 4 years by about $33.6 billion. That's a projection from the Finance Ministry, assuming the existing laws and systems stay the same. The amount budgeted for obligatory welfare spending this year was roughly $100 billion. The figure is expected to rise by an average of 7.6% per year and reach about $135 billion in 2024. By sector, public pensions, which account for the majority of the spending, are expected to rise at 7.8% per year. And as Korean society ages, spending on senior citizens is projected to rise 8.5% per year. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Chuseok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good to have you back on.
Happy to be here.
Well, Wall Street ended last week on a note of serious uncertainty, a massive drop on Thursday, then another drop on Friday. Korean stocks recovering today, though. What's the story in the markets?
Okay, well, let's take a look at the U.S. stocks first. The Dow Thursday and Friday combined went down by 3.3%. S&P went down by 4.3%, and NASDAQ went down by 6.2%. But this brings the stock indices to around the level, ironically enough, all three indices around the same level that it was on August 21st. So they perhaps lost about 2 weeks worth of growth, which in terms of the entire year is not that much. But it was the worst fall since June for Dow and S&P and since March for NASDAQ. And it comes right after S&P and NASDAQ had record highs. So it seems that the investors are getting very nervous. A lot of people, including myself, were saying that this rally doesn't seem to be that justified. And I think that nervousness did play into the correction in the market. The biggest losers in the fall were tech companies like Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet. And why did it fall at this particular time? What news was the trigger? No one really knows. There was the unemployment news on Thursday, but it wasn't that bad. It fell from 10.2 to 8.4%, which was actually, it fell more than expected, which should have been good news. Coronavirus is still bad in the U.S., but it was not worse than usual. There's sort of a conspiracy theory going around saying that SoftBank of Japan bought a lot of call options for tech stocks, and the prices were driven up because these option sellers were needed to buy stocks to cover the option if the option would be exercised. But there's a lot of question on whether that is true or not. SoftBank is insane. And then some analysts are saying September and October are cruel months for stock market anyway. And then some other analysts are saying this is increased instability due to the upcoming U.S. elections. But basically, no one knows why it fell at this particular time. And again, even though it seems large, it only cost about 2 weeks worth of growth. So everybody's assuming that the growth will continue eventually. It's just how far it's going to drop until it starts rising again. The other markets, European markets, Japanese markets, they followed the American trend. Most of them fell since Thursday. Korea was the exception. Korea did actually, the Korean stock indices, KOSPI and KOSDAQ, rose on Thursday when the U.S. markets fell. It did fall on Friday, but today it recovered again. So Korea is sort of the exception to the rule in the global stock market. And again, it would seem to have been driven by Korean individual investors. The foreigners and institutional investors sold.
Well, zooming out a bit, Professor, we've seen a pretty significant decline in oil prices the past few days. Tell us about that, and what's your outlook?
Okay, well, from the local high of $43.39 on August 26th, the West Texas Intermediate, which is the standard for these things, fell about 8.3% to $39.77 on last Friday U.S. time. This is widely attributed because, first, the global economic slowdown, the lack of demand is likely to continue, and then during July and August, the oil prices did rise, and that caused an increase in production, especially in Russia and U.S., and inventories are still on the high side, so that is attributed to the price fall. The demand is not that high, and it's for the United States. It's Labor Day this Monday, so the driving season is over, and so the oil demand is not likely to increase. Saudi Arabia has cut prices for Asian buyers by $1 per barrel in the last week, which also contributed. And at least for now, until coronavirus disappears or at least goes under control, it's not likely that the demand for oil will rise very much. So we might be stuck in a period of low oil prices like it was during the spring.
Well, it is the start of a new week, Professor. We should be getting some data on employment from the Bank of Korea and other kinds of data. What's on your radar in the days to come?
Okay, well, the biggest economic news for Korea will be what is the government going to do about the economic stimulus plan, including the second emergency relief program. The government has signaled that this time the relief payments will not go to everybody, but people who were hit by the coronavirus, and they seem to be concentrating on small business owners whose revenues have been cut because of the lockdown and social distancing measures that Korea has undergone in the last couple of weeks. But the criteria has not been concretely set yet. That's due to be announced, and there has been a lot of controversy on exactly who's going to get the relief payments, and also whether the relief payments should go to everybody like they did for the first payment. So there's going to be a lot of political controversy, and the government should announce the rule as quickly as possible. It's due sometime this week, but no one knows quite when. And then some interesting statistics coming up. Employment figures for Korea for August should be up on Wednesday, and Ministry of Economy and Finance should announce government budget trends on Tuesday. Globally, European Central Bank has a monetary policy speech this week, and U.S. Consumer Price Index for August should be out this week.
All right, we'll be watching all of that, and we'll have to catch up again later this week. Thanks so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, the World Trade Organization on Monday will be starting the first round of the process to choose the next Director General. South Korea's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee is among the 8 candidates in the running. Kim Jae-hee reports.
The first of 3 selection rounds for the next WTO Director General is due to start in Geneva, Switzerland. The first round is scheduled to run from Monday through September 16th. During the first round, representatives of WTO member states will evaluate each of the 8 candidates' preferences and drop the bottom 3. 3 more candidates will be rejected in the second round, leaving just 2 to battle it out in the final round. The 3 rounds will last up to 2 months, with the final decision expected by early November at the latest. During the campaign that started in July, South Korea's candidate, Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee, has been stressing that she's capable of carrying out organizational reforms. She revealed her aspirations during her candidacy speech at the WTO's headquarters in Geneva on July 16th. She said her vision for the WTO centers on rebuilding trust in the multilateral trading system by making it more relevant, resilient, and responsive. She visited Geneva again on August 31st and contacted representatives from the member states to call for their support. With watchers saying an African or female candidate have a better chance of being chosen, many anticipate Yu to pass the first round without much of a hitch. She was also recently listed among the top 3 candidates for the role by a German think tank. If Yu makes it the whole way, she'll be the WTO's first female leader. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
From tomorrow, train tickets will go on sale for the Chuseok holiday. The government's been asking people not to travel, but for those who do set out, there'll only be window seats available on the bullet trains so that they're only 50% full. This year, tickets will only be available online, and that's on Tuesday and Wednesday. Express bus companies have been told to only sell window seats as well. The Chuseok holiday this year is from September 30th to October 4th. And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.